welcome back to Northwest City Politics in the Know with Juanita. We're glad that you're watching our show again this week. We're very happy that there are people like you out in our audience who are interested in what's happening in the cities in Northwest Community Television's viewing area. It is important for good government to have citizens and residents that follow what's happening in their cities, and when something is of concern to them, you take time to be in contact with your mayors and city council people. So we're glad that you're watching us tonight. If you haven't watched us before, each week we'll have someone on from one of the 9 cities in our viewing area and talk about what are the current things happening in that city and make you a little more aware of what's going on, and then also encourage you to get involved with your city as much as your time permits. We're very happy tonight to have as a guest Mayor Duane Poppe from Osseo.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been on our show before, so we're glad to welcome you back again.
Glad to be here.
And learn about what's happening currently in Osseo.
Yep.
And you know that I always have people introduce themselves out to our wider audience. Saves me time to let you introduce yourself, right?
Yes.
So I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, I'm Duane Poppe, the mayor of Osseo. We have lived in Osseo. It'll be 19 years this year. So we've been there and been part of the community. We have 3 small children. 13, 11, and soon to be 8. And keeps telling us every day, countdown to September 11th is her
coming
birthday.
Up fast.
Yeah. So we've got that big birthdays coming up here. But yeah, so they're busy with sports and other activities, so that keeps us on the run.
Right. Yeah. Along with being mayor,
Yes.
You have a busy family, busy household. There isn't many cities with elections this year, just Golden Valley. But I always like to give people a little advice, because probably the biggest involvement you could have is when you choose to run for office. And do you have any advice to give to people who are just kind of thinking about it? Maybe they haven't done anything about it yet, but...
I guess my advice is for anyone who's thinking about running is run for the right reason. Run to do what's best for the city. Ultimately, I think people can get elected on a position or another one, and they'll take that stand. And after that, they really have no other passion. So you have to have a passion for doing what's right for the city. In the long term. That's one thing that you gotta, really kind of look deep down inside of yourself to see is, am I doing this for the right reasons? So.
Now we'll switch gears and talk a little bit about road construction in Osseo. And Osseo is using a process called mill and overlay to improve your city streets. A lot of other cities are too. Can you first tell, what does this process mean? Because somebody out there might say, mill and overlay, what in the world is that?
I know, they like to throw around fancy terms, mill and overlay, and reclamation and blah blah. But no, basically, what it is we took the thickness of the pavement. And anywhere, depends on the roads. Anywhere from 4 inches or 6 inches. It depends on the road bed. But what we're able to do is take 2 inches of bituminous, blacktop off the top. That's the mill. And then we put 2 inches of new blacktop or bituminous over the top of that. So it's the mill, and then you overlay it. And what that does is it doesn't affect your road bed, because you have your bituminous, then you have your road bed, and then sand, and then utilities underneath that. So with this one, allows you, it just extends the life of the roads. And that's what, as we looked at, we did a pavement management study. And we analyzed all the roads within Osseo, and then we laid over that where are all of our utility issues, whether it be sanitary sewer, storm sewer, water, and then gas. Gas and the other electrical utilities. We program them into to say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. If you want to be in here, now's the time to do it. So we took all that, and then the ones that the pavement management was such that if we did a mill and overlay, we could continue to extend the life of those streets. And there was no major utility projects, which ended up, about half the city.
That's significant.
That we're able to do this year, which roads haven't been touched since early 90s. You know, so almost 20 years.
Oh, that's a long time,
and our roads were pretty bad. And back at that time, whatever the reason was, the bituminous that was on top, there was apparently the state spec was not correct. So, I mean, you had all these, it was just, chunks would just come out, and that's why we had so many potholes throughout Osseo. And I mean, nobody said, you know, they spray patched them for years and years and years, and we said, we've got to do something. So we were able to mill and overlay about half the city this year.
Oh, that's a lot.
And then the rest of them, you know, have major, you know, underground issues that we've, you know, kind of programmed out for the upcoming years.
Because you only need to do where the water and sewer need working, not where they're working fine.
Yeah.
And then did you do where you send little cameras down to see how they're...
The scopes, yeah. There's televised, they're called, they televised all the pipes, you know, to look at, you know, a lot of times there's roots or things that, you know, grow into them, so they have to go and clean them out, you know, so yeah, I mean, that was part of, you know, the kind of looking at all the utilities and scoped them all, and I said, you know, we just need to figure this out. And we had to have a coordinated effort. I said, there's no way we're going to dig up a street and 2 years later be back into it if we don't. I mean, unless something blows up. I mean, I get it, but I mean, it better not be for maintenance.
Right. Well, and that's an important part of attracting people to your community is, you know, the condition of the streets are something that people notice quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, curb, gutter, street, sidewalks. All that, I think, adds to the, you know, beautification of the community.
How many miles of streets or is there in Osseo approximately?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I don't even remember how many miles we ended up doing this year. You know, I don't. We're only 1 square mile. So.
Okay, yeah, because I was trying to figure out and think in my head. But half of the streets is a lot to get done.
Oh, yeah.
And then what's the plan for the rest of the streets that are left?
Yeah, we did, it's over a 8-year cycle.
Okay.
You know, we just decided, originally we looked at doing a bigger project every other year and a smaller project in between, but, you know, with kind of figuring out the whole mill and overlay this year, we just said, you know what, we just need to program these next streets, do a little bit bigger project and just stack them up because, I mean, everybody deserves a good street. And again, I think, you know, it just builds, you know, a better community.
Oh, definitely.
By having better infrastructure. So we've kind of programmed it out, you know, looking at the ones that have the worst, you know, underground issues. And we've just kind of programmed them out, and, you know, the ones, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years out, you know, really have no underground issues at this time. But then as that gets done, then we'll probably be back reconstructing some of the streets we milled and overlaid now.
Yeah, because it's an ongoing process over the years.
Yeah, you never catch up.
Well, and then you do want to plan it carefully so the money and the roads all balance out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was one thing that, you know, we spent a lot of time on. I mean, that, you know, I spent 2 years building when we got there. I mean, we didn't have a financial management plan or you know, or a capital improvement plan. So now, I mean, that it's refreshing. We just had a council work session just on Monday, and be able to sit down with the document and say, this is what we're going to do, and this is where the balances are going to be, you know, 20 years from now, which is a guess. You know, but I mean, at least you're planning, and at least I mean, over the next 5, 6 years, I mean, it's pretty honed in on, and you're constantly, you know, changing, updating. But I mean, at least you can understand now the decisions you make today. What does that mean downstream?
Oh, definitely.
And to, make sure that, you know, you have enough. Your rates are set where they are. Your levy is set where it is, so that you can be able to do a lot of the stuff in the future. That before it was just like, we're going to do this, and well, we'll figure it out later. You know, and it's just not the way you do it.
And that's one of the criticisms of the state transportation is they don't have that kind of plan, and so you end up with infrastructure that needs repairing and doesn't get done. So
or it gets
your
done
city
and it's already outdated.
So your city is taking a much more proactive approach.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're trying to. I mean, I think that's just, you know, just a good way to manage.
Right. Now, I'm asking everybody this year, because it affects different cities different ways, but the Star Tribune recently had an article about suburbs embracing tax increment financing. So I've got a series of questions, and I'll have you respond with where Osseo is on it, because each city is a little different.
Yep.
But TIF was originally set up to deal with, I believe, blighted areas of a city and to bring in new jobs. What is your understanding of the changes that have happened with this tax increment financing over the years? And maybe a little bit about what does it mean when people see the word TIF or tax increment financing?
Yeah, you know, everyone thinks TIF is a four-letter word in some cities, but you know,
that's true.
we've actually used it quite a bit in Osseo because that's really the only way, you know, we're able to do some of these deals. And I mean, just to kind of explain TIF as basically as we can, is basically it's set up where, let's say there's a building and it's generating $10,000 in tax. We use round numbers. And then by tearing this building down or doing something different, it'll generate $20,000 in tax. And that $10,000 difference between the original 10 and the new 10, that's your increment, your tax increment. And that money then can be used for eligible expenses with that new development or something else. You know, whether it be site, and you know, there's a whole laundry list that it has to pass kind of a state test of, there's a but-for test that this development wouldn't happen but for this and this. So I mean, there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through to show eligible expenses and things. But for us from the city of Osseo, I mean, we're allowed, you know, have used that for a lot of different projects to be able to, you know, get some of this stuff done. You know, so I mean, it's been a tool in our toolbox for a number of years.
So,
you know.
so it's been a necessary tool to help keep the city up to date and bring about changes with older buildings or ones that aren't used anymore.
Sites. And really the key to think about too is, once you put it in a tax increment, the taxes that it was generating prior to that, that redevelopment, you're still getting those to the city. I mean, so it's not like it just all goes away.
Yeah, because you've got the 10,000 and all those taxes keep coming in to the city and the county and the school district, right? But this other money enables you to do something you wouldn't have the money to do at the time, right?
And then you get something, a better project out of it.
And then there's specific things that it can only be used for. Now, why is it attractive to businesses? What are they getting that, because you've got that money available?
I mean, a lot of it is just, you know, environmental cleanup, you know, site work, I mean, infrastructure cost, sewer, water. I mean, there's some things that helps, you know, to foster the, you know, the development along. So, I mean, like I said, it's been a tool we've used.
In many different ways, right?
Continue using. What's nice is, you know, now we've really cleaned up some of our older TIF districts. You know, so now these projects that were built a number of years ago, they're rolling online. So I mean, now we're just, you know, having, you know, a lot more tax base again.
That goes into the city. Now, one of the, I don't know about detriments, I don't know if that's the right word, but it does affect what the county and school district get.
Correct, that increment above, you know, your base, then all goes, you know, to the city, if you will. You know, and if there's any excess TIF, it'll, you know, eventually all goes back to the taxing authorities. But, you know, every project has to go and get, you know, county and school.
And it has to be approved by these different groups.
I mean, they know. You know, if they could stall it if they so choose. You know, so.
But it does help the community grow, so it's adding to the overall benefit of the whole city, right? Now, how do cities decide how long this TIF district should last? Because it can go varying lengths of time. That's it's an economic decision, right?
I mean, it's just pure numbers. You know, I mean, it can go on a redevelopment as long as 28 years, and it depends on what those projected costs are and how much increment it generates and how long it'll pay it back. You know, there has been projects though that never generate the increment they think they're going to, and I mean, and they never recover those costs.
I suppose.
And it's one thing to understand with TIF, it's it's not money that's just given out. It's they have to pay the taxes.
Oh, right.
And then the check is given to them. So it's pay as you go. So it's not a big check
ahead
up
of
front.
time,
Yeah.
right.
You know, a lot of times there'll be a bond floated that the TIF then will pay off. But yeah, I mean, the developer, the owner of that property, has to write that check out, pay, and then the city then writes a check back to them. You know,
so the city council and your EDA have to spend quite a bit of time studying that and determining what's going to be best for the city in that long time.
I mean, granted, I mean, we have bond counsel and financial advisors that you know do lean in and give us guidance on those issues too.
Well, and then because it affects the taxes that are coming in for your overall city, then there's some ratio that's going to work for your city or not work for your city, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've done different projects where, like with the 5 Central, we were able to do a bond within the TIF district to pay for the sanitary sewers, so we wouldn't have to assess for it.
Right.
And that's part of the payments that come out during. So I mean, you can do things within the TIF district to help save, assessing people.
Oh, sure.
So I mean, it's been a great tool.
And then the percentage that you have in TIF districts is important for the city to be overlooking.
Yeah. I mean, we're nowhere near where any
for your
tip
city,
over, tip over ratio.
Because once in a while you see in the articles about cities that have done way too much, and then it shorts them for their daily needs.
Yeah. I mean, I know, Rogers was in the papers a while ago for that and abatement and things like that. I mean, I won't say we'll never do it, but I mean, abatement's not usually an issue that, we'll even consider just because we don't generate enough just with what we have to be able to give it away.
So you need people to give advice, but you need the council to sit down and do wise planning when they're using that kind of process.
Yep.
Now, do you have ongoing TIF districts? How many do you have approximately now in Osseo?
We probably have 8 left. With different projects.
Right.
I mean, some of
different
them,
times. And
yeah, I mean, we've got some. We retired a couple over the last couple of years. We've got some that only have a couple years left, and some that I know one for sure. 2 of them we've shrunk the area to around the project to help try to capture some increment for them, and I don't know if they'll ever see it. So I mean, it's not just free money.
Right.
I mean,
no.
You got to build a good project, and it's got to, have higher value than what you started.
Right.
And if you don't, there's no increment.
Right. You're going to be in trouble. Right.
So yeah.
But it is a good tool for cities.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that all of our cities are doing, especially starting in May, June, is working on your 2016 budget.
Oh yeah.
So what's happening in Osseo?
We just had our meeting, and because the end of the September here, you have to have your preliminary budget sent.
Right.
And then that's what they use then for the truth and taxation statements that you'll get and say, the city is thinking about this much tax this year, and this is what it'll mean to your house.
Right.
And that's when people, when you get those, it'll be October, need to review those, see what it means, and come in and have a conversation.
Yes.
And just don't not show up to the meetings.
Oh, no, people really need to come with this.
They need to come out and they need to express their opinions.
Right.
And also, I think with that, it helps them to understand. I mean, we had, during our truth and taxation hearing last year, our levy was basically flat, but everyone's house value went up. So, I mean, we had to show that, your taxes are going up because your value is going up, and really, I mean, that's really the key, is to understand what is the city has done with their budget. Right. As if it's flat, if it's up a little bit, where is it? Because that's really all that the city has control over. The school district, the county throws taxes on top of that, and then it's the city again doesn't place the value of your home. Right. The Hennepin County assessor comes in for the city of Osseo. Right. Granted, other cities have their own assessors, but for us, Hennepin County comes in and says, this is the value of it. So if your value is higher, you're going to pay more tax.
And people don't always understand that.
So I mean, that's again is as you get that, try to really understand where the city budget is, where the value of our house is. And I mean, again, what this show is, just get informed, ask the questions, get full understanding, so, and then that's, but yeah, and then it's the last counts, it's before the end of the year, is when you have to have your ratified budget, is what you submit. And typically the one we submit in September ends up being higher than what we ratify in December, because what you submit, you can't go up, but you can go down. So, I mean, they're granted a little padded in there because you don't know some of the expenses, some of the revenues, some of the fine numbers until later in the year, and then we just kind of massage that and move things, and really take a hard look and really ask the department heads, do you really need this, or can we live with this another year? Can we push this out? Where does this look like? So then that really, I mean, from now until December is really kind of crunch time. Crunch time for us. And the truth in taxation hearing is important.
Oh, definitely.
To hear people, and also, it's a good time to educate people. So
well, and people need to be aware, because people complain about taxes, right? But then the more they know of what's happening, the more they can interact with the council and yourself in terms of expressing what they'd like to see done.
Yeah, and we said a lot. We only control what the city does. There's two other entities.
And people aren't always aware of that, because they think property tax is city. And they don't realize the school district and the county gets some too, right? And you're roughly a third of it, I think?
Yeah, I think we're just under a third, in the city of Osseo, based on, the other taxes. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're like 28% or, so, but, yeah.
So we'll encourage people, because that Truth in Taxation meeting will be
October.
In October. So watch for it
you'll get your statement, in the mail.
Yeah, when you get it, be sure to take time to
look at
come. Well, and because you'll make the city will make a presentation there to help people understand the process.
Yeah, and usually what we've done in the past is say, this is have a kind of a range of value of houses, and this is kind of ballpark of where things are going to be, and then say, if the value of your house stayed the same, you'd pay, a little bit more, but the value of your house has gone up, so you're going to pay even a little bit more, So I mean, it's trying to break it down, because it is kind of simply as we can. I mean, to help again. I mean, trying to get the information out there and just help educate people. I mean, because the education is the power, and the more they know, the more they understand, the less kind of wild stories you hear out on the streets. So.
And during this process, as you have meetings, people can sit in on the meetings if they really like to follow budgeting. I always like to tell people that that the number of people that want to follow it is probably minimal, but that it's possible. You can follow the whole process.
We've really worked hard on over these last few years is, our budget itself is make it simpler, make it more plain. Because it drove me nuts, the way our budget was, the audit was, the account, everything was different names, and it was this and that, and this fund, and I'm like, you know what, this needs to be as simple. So you can take the audit, you can take the budget, and just kind of look at everything and go, okay, everything lines up, and these accounts all lay out simply, and because I don't know what it is with city budgets, but they always try to the smoke and mirrors and all this complicated stuff.
In the past, I think.
And it's like, just it's the people's money. Make it simple.
Well, and then somebody mentioned once, if people believe that you're doing good work with their money, they're not going to be all the complaints that you have about taxes. But you have to show people, and then they have to be able to understand what's going on.
As we've looked at it, we look at, the people are, giving us money to run the government. And if they don't seem that they're getting a positive return on the money that they're giving the city, that's where the people get upset. But if they're saying, well, I'm paying my taxes and all this good stuff is happening, and granted the taxes are fair, they're saying, I'm being fairly taxed, and I get something good for what I pay.
I'm getting these services, because all the city services cost money.
And so and we've had some comments. The guys, they've said, I'm happy to pay my taxes because I know I'm getting something for it. He said, haven't been able always to say that. I don't know what was happening.
Right, yeah, and so I think a lot of cities are moving to simplify the process so people can understand it.
Transparency is really the key.
Yeah, it's important.
Because, once you really dive into the numbers, that's, and most people don't care.
No.
And I think it's, in the past, it's been, they try to make it as confusing as possible.
Yeah.
So, we've tried to really lay out and separate and line item things out and put things in different departments and not have all the catch-all other professional services. It was like, what is this? And it's just, things like that, things flow in and out and they don't make sense.
Right.
So we're trying to clean that up. And our budget was, looking at the other day, it was kind of like, we've come a long way, and it's a lot easier to read and putting things in each of the departments that actually those expenses come from.
Right.
So you really have a true cost on
and
what government is.
Right. Now, you've done some work on some parks this summer.
Yeah, it was, again, another thing.
Some park and recreation projects,
Yeah, we've got a couple of different things going on, over in Sipes Park. And we had the tennis courts and basketball courts. And those, again, hadn't been resurfaced in a long time. So we went out and we resurfaced the tennis courts and resurfaced the basketball courts to just, again, get kids out playing.
Oh, right.
And then with the tennis courts, pickleball is really starting to pick up.
Right.
So then we striped them for pickleball courts. So we'll have, the pickleball courts and the tennis courts will be there. So again, and then we're getting nets and paddles and things, and that'll be in a box down at the park. So then people can come and get the combination and then set it up and play.
Sure.
So again, more recreational activities for people in town. And then really kind of our big thing is Boom Park, which is the park right across from City Hall.
Okay.
With the monuments, and that's where we do the music and the movies. On the back side of that park, there's 4 homes. And right now the city has acquired 3 of the 4 homes. We have 1 more home to go. And then our plan is and we established a park committee now. And then we're going to begin kind of study and evaluation of what is that going to be? Because we have, I always said, we have one opportunity to get this right. And we need to do it right.
Definitely.
So we're going to, a lot of citizen input, a lot of looking at different options and what we can do. Because then I really think that could be, really something special. You have a one square block park right in the middle of town.
Right. Where everybody can get to.
Yeah, bigger festivities, the way it laid out. We just, you have to take time, you got to do it right.
Right.
So, and then we're just starting the park committee, and we'll probably about a year or so, or it will probably, be able to acquire the last house there. We're not condemning people, we're just working with them as they
the
decide.
Time arises.
Yeah, so we just buy them as the opportunity comes up. And
well, I want to thank you so much for sharing all your expertise and your ideas with our audience out there. We're glad that you've joined us. And if you're from Osseo and you have any questions or thoughts or ideas, I hope you took down Duane Poppe's email and phone number, and you can be in contact with him. Or if there's issues that got your interest but you're in another city, contact your city hall and learn more about it, and then start interacting on them. And we'll look for you to join us again next week. Bye.